Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is fantastic to have you here with us today. My name is Verity Kingsmill, and I'm the Interim Director here for the New Venture Institute at Flinders University. It's fantastic to have those people here in the room, but also those who are joining us online as well. Welcome to this great opportunity where we get to meet the recently appointed State Chief Entrepreneur, and also the team from our fixed team for the state as well. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to Flinders at Tonsley, and also on behalf of Philip Dotel as well to the the Tonsley district. I just went another Flinders, Flinders on the mind, to the Tonsley district as well. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the land on which we meet. We're meeting on the land of the Kaurna people. We pay respects to their leaders, past, present and emerging. We respect and acknowledge and value the traditional spiritual connection to these lands, and we thank you that we get to use them. For those that are joining us in the room or online, any Indigenous language peoples or Torres Strait Islanders as well, we acknowledge and thank you for your presence too. Referring to old school paper notes. What is Flinders New Venture Institute about? Well, we are about connecting communities to create value and make lasting positive impacts on all that we do. And everyone in this room, that is what we know you are about as well, and where we can work together to connect more and more people to create greater value in all that you do, then that's what we're here to help you achieve. We provide support programs, services for individuals, businesses, educators, researchers, to take the ideas of innovation beyond just the word and actually put those thoughts and processes into action, both at a local, national and international level. We really want to support that community of startups to help you achieve, to create an ongoing community so that we can continue to raise the profile and the potential and the talent and give opportunities for those of you who continue to have fantastic, innovative approaches, entrepreneurial mindset in everything you do, and give you the opportunity to thrive. We know that the last 12 months have had its challenges, and that's an understatement. It has been amazing as I have stepped into this role to see the tenacity and the way that people have adapted all that they do to continue to achieve more than they probably set out or imagined they could set out to achieve in the beginning. So it is fantastic to watch that happen and watch people change direction at just the drop of a hat and continue to do things that I am just in awe of. But most importantly, you're not actually here to hear me keep promoting the Flinders New Venture Institute or what we're doing. We are here because we have the great pleasure of welcoming our South Australian Chief Entrepreneur, Andrew Nunn, here to Tonsley and the Tonsley precinct and here at Flinders NVI. Andrew steps into the role of the South Australian Chief Entrepreneur with decades of experience as an environmental consultant, entrepreneur and philanthropist. He's co-founder, chairman and executive director of JBS&G Australia, one of Australia's largest privately owned environmental consulting companies, and was awarded the EY Entrepreneur of the Year for the Central Region in 2017. Andrew acts as director for several companies focused on property development, private equity, investment and entertainment opportunities as well. In partnership with his wife, Alexandra Demos, he founded the Nunn Demos Foundation, a philanthropic fund focused on supporting key social and art courses in South Australia. Andrew leads the state's entrepreneurial board, and as the South Australian Chief Entrepreneur, provides high-level independent advice to the South Australian Cabinet and business community and to enable entrepreneurialism across all forms of business and industry and the public sector to thrive. We also have the pleasure of the FIX team here with us today as well. That's the Future Industries Exchange for Entrepreneurship. It's a strategy to grow the culture of entrepreneurship in South Australia. The vision of FIX is to create the right culture, improve the capability and mobilise the capital requirements to make South Australia a global leader in entrepreneurship. Once Andrew has presented, we will actually be inviting the team up, and I know a number of people have presented questions before today, and we will open to the floor as well. But it's a great and absolute joy for us to have the team here, but particularly to have our state's Chief Entrepreneur. And I'd like you to join with me and take this opportunity to welcome Andrew Nunn to the stage to present to us this afternoon. Thanks, Andrew.
I'll just put some notes there so that I don't forget. Oh, that's dangerous. Put them there. G'day, everybody. How are you? So my name's Andrew Nunn. Can I say you must be proud of the NVI and what you've done there. And you have to be excited by what Tonsley is doing here. But I say you need to be optimistic also about what the government is doing also with entrepreneurship across South Australia. So very excited. I'm honoured to be the Chief Entrepreneur for the state. Very excited about the opportunity it provides. It provides me to look broadly across everything that's happening and try with my board and with the team here to try and find a way to make it work better, to make it work faster, to make it more collaborative. So very excited about it and look forward to getting into it more. I need to give you a little bit of background about me so you know who I am. I'm an engineer, so I feel like I'm sort of in the right place, yay. I'm an environmental engineer. I actually trained as a geotechnical engineer, but ended up in the environmental field. So I'll get to that. More importantly, I guess, in a way, I started in a very working class family in Melbourne. I was number 4 of 5 boys, and as such, there wasn't a lot of time for, I guess, engagement. So Mum and Dad put a lot of time into us, talking to us to go and do things that other people aren't doing. Go and find a way to do something. I guess having 5 boys in a small house probably makes you do that. And so I learned the concept of entrepreneurship very early. So my brother and I started a business, believe it or not, washing houses. Lots of weatherboard houses in working class Melbourne. And so we spent a lot of time doing that. We actually set up a business and created and learned the process of doing something that nobody else wants to do, going and challenging and trying something else. And I mean, that was 1983. We were making, I think, $100 a time, and we were doing quite a good job. And we worked out if you picked the right street, then everybody wanted it because the neighbour had it. And so it was a fantastic business, and it just sort of grew from there. So we learned a lot about how to engage. Also, my father was a pharmacist. My mum raised 5 boys, so she was pretty flat out, but my dad was a pharmacist, and every Saturday morning he used to take us to work. And my job was always on the counter. So I always dealt with all the customers, whether they be grumpy or happy or sick or sad or just lonely or whatever. So my job was to deal with them. So I learned a lot about dealing with people. I learned a lot about talking to people, understanding them. I actually learned quite a lot about reading people just in that time. Quite an influential time, so I would have been, I guess I started going when I was 8 and I finished when I was about 16. So I learned a lot in those informative years about how to deal with people and to read people. And I took that into my engineering. When I started in, again, do things that no one else is doing. When I started in geological engineering and I got to the end and there's no jobs, I go, oh, what am I going to do? I'll go do environment. It's the only thing going. It's the only thing I can get a job in. I'll have a crack at environment. How long will environment last, right? It turned out to be a fantastic opportunity. I climbed very quickly. One, it was a new industry. Two, I could talk to people. Three, I did things that no one else wanted to do. And so within about 2 to 3 years, I controlled most of the major projects of this large national firm. Largely because I could just talk to the clients rather than looking at my feet, which is what most engineers love to do. I don't think it's such a problem these days. I think the education system has allowed kids to talk a lot better and people to engage a lot more. But in those days, we often talk to our feet. So I went through that and I learned the process of saying yes. So, Andrew, do you want to go and drive around Victoria for 3 months looking at all these contaminated sites? Yes. Do you want to go live in the middle of the Gulf of Carpentaria on an island called Grid Island and clean up a 10 million litre diesel spill that BHP happened to do? Sure, definitely. Great fishing, by the way. And 3, would you like to go to Adelaide for a 1-year secondment? Adelaide. Maybe. That one took a long time. Because again, though, do something no one else wants to do. So I did it. So I took it up. And all I saw, when everyone else said, oh my God, our blonde-haired boy's going, what did he do to get sent to Adelaide? I just saw opportunity. I loved it. Loved it all. And what you found in Adelaide, in my field in those days, was no one had their best people in Adelaide. You had a gun who could talk to clients and generate income, and that's what consultants do. They didn't stay. They got sent to the eastern states, right? So I came here. It was great. I remember the first day I turned up to work, and I worked Melbourne time, so I turned up at 7 and waited at the office, and no one was there. I think about 10 to 9, I think the first time somebody turned up. So I sort of got my head into gear. It's a different zone here. I've got to work out how I work here. But it was great. So once I worked out how to work here, once I worked out how to engage with clients here, I could build a life here. And I loved it. So what I did in about 2002, I started a business. And I sold my house in Melbourne, which was probably a stupid idea in hindsight. But I sold my house in Melbourne. I guaranteed 2 young guys 2 years' work. And I said, come with me and we'll have a go. What could possibly go wrong? So we set up in my kitchen table in my 2-bedroom unit in Orange Lane in Norwood, and we started a company. But what we did again is we innovated, and we did things that, again, no one else was doing. So in my industry in those days, what you did is you wrote a report saying your site's contaminated. Here you go. I thought, well, why don't we go, your site's contaminated and this is what we're going to do to clean it up. So we were very early on the curve of containerising groundwater treatment systems. And Adelaide was the perfect spot because you're right in the middle of the country, you're about an hour or 2 to anywhere. And we had these fantastic concepts of containerised groundwater treatment systems, treating groundwater for big customers all around the place, run out of little old Adelaide. It was fantastic. It was great business. And so we did that for a number of years, and then in 2014, I'd sort of got jack of it a bit. I was just tired and exhausted, and to be honest, I didn't invest enough up front in terms of in front of the growth, and the growth of the company sort of outshone me. And so I ended up merging the companies and stepping back and then going to do other things. I got into whole heap property developments and startups and private equity companies and all sorts of things, and they were all great, and it's fantastic. It was a different experience, and I really enjoyed it. I also set up a philanthropic fund, and this isn't a preach on philanthropic funds, but it was been a great experience for us because my wife and I, we'd done really well, we made a lot of money, it was fantastic, and we just wanted to reinvest back in SA, we wanted to reinvest, and pretty much any book I read about happiness said nothing about making more money. It said a lot about giving, and it said a lot about, there's no such thing as a former philanthropist. Once you're into it, you enjoy it. And we enjoyed it. So anyway, so that's core to what we do. It's core to the values that my wife and I hold, and we have a great time and we really enjoy it. So that's me in a nutshell. But since I've taken up this role, I look more now about the role of entrepreneurship on the economy. I look at what it can do. We had an amazing stat just during the week that something like there's 55,000 17 to 24-year-olds in South Australia who either don't have a connection to a job or to education. And that's a problem. That's a genuine problem. And you look at that and you go, well, what the role of entrepreneurship has in there? Well, entrepreneurship has a role of creating jobs and creating futures and engaging people at a whole range of different levels. TAFE has a role. They all have roles. So what entrepreneurs do and what you guys do and what NVI does and the other learning institutes is you create these ripples and waves in the economy. And I felt it out there today. You know, everyone's bouncing off each other. There's this fantastic feeling of engagement. Judy and I always talk about the Brownian motion of people crashing into each other with different ideas, and you get that feeling out there, and that's the feeling that creates the waves and the ripples in the community. And you get enough of those waves, you lift the tide of the state, you lift the tide of the area you're in. And if we can lift the tide, we sort of all boats float on an incoming tide. And so I just think that's really important, because that's the sort of role that we're here for. We're here to grow business, to have a great time growing them, because there's nothing more fun than growing a business and having it succeed. But doing it with others and creating employment and creating opportunities, that's when it really antes up. So I think that's the role. And so I congratulate you guys on doing that. My vision is consolidating as we speak. I'm 6 weeks in, to be fair. It's quite a broad scope of a job. And it's reasonably full on at the moment. But I think my view is really around playing to our strengths. I think there's a temptation to sprinkle a lot of love everywhere. And I'm not sure that's where I sort of see where we should be going. And obviously I've got masters we'll talk to, but my gut feel, and they're not here so it's okay, but my gut feel, well, they're probably on the internet, my gut feel is what we need to be doing is probably picking some of the key things that we are better at than everyone else. We are better at either geographically, we're better at because of our history, we're better at for whatever reason, and let's target that. I'd rather pick 2 or 3 or 4 good things that we put up our hand and say, we are the best in the world at this. Come here. This is where you come and play. And it's probably defence and space and submarines and all those sort of things. I think it's probably ag tech. I think we've got a really big role to play in ag tech. I really do. I think we have an enormous minerals wealth that is largely untapped that we really need to unlock and get access to underpin where we go. And there's probably a couple of other things that the board and I and a group of other people like you guys and the various other institutes will no doubt come in and give me their thoughts on where they think we should focus our efforts. And that's what I think it is. It's about focus. What are we going to do? Where are we focusing on and where do we get the best bang? And so that's what I think we need to do. I think we need to try and do that. I do think we need to try and close this gap between R&D and commercialisation. I think we're very, very good at R&D. We're not so good at commercialisation. So I think understanding why that is and working out how we close that's really important. So, and I think we do that through a fair bit of collaboration between the various tertiary institutes. I think we work out what each group is really good and really targeted at, and maybe we share the love a bit. I've got this utopian feeling that we're going to all work together happily and do something amazing, and I still believe that. I'm not jaded at all yet, and I honestly think we can get there and do something amazing across all of the institutes. So that's where I'd like to go. I'd like to sort of consolidate into specialist areas, aggregate who's good in those areas and what they can deliver, and then really disseminate what we do and get everyone involved. So that's me. That's what I'd like to do. I think lot 14, where my current office is, but hopefully I'll try and get an office down here as well. I love the concept of having innovation centres. I really do. I think we're blessed with the innovation centres we have. I think we're blessed with the geographic and co-location of innovation centres with universities and whatnot. So I think we need to maximise that. I really think we need, whether that's all been planned or by design, let's go with planned, or accidental, it works. And I think we need to ante up that. We need to work off that, and we need to try and make that better and really get the value out of this fantastically fortunate position we find ourselves in. Lot 14 is an innovation hub. it's the one in the city, but it's an innovation hub. And I think it's well known, and so the concept of Lot 14 and the impact of Lot 14 can have on an innovation network across the state, I think we need to explore that a bit more, because I think there's a great PR advantage and there's a great functional and practical advantage of having everyone feeling like they're working on the same team. So with that, I'll probably leave it at that, but thank you for listening and good luck to you all.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And I know it is 6 weeks in, and I know just in the last hour that you've been here in the Tonsley area, we have been throwing all sorts of things at you. So it's fantastic to hear you think about everything from a state perspective, but also what it means for Australia in the international scale. I think that's really exciting. And I know there are a number of people in this room that are at the early stages of their business path. There's others who are further in and have watched things come and go over time. But I do know that everyone actually is committed in the same way as actually seeing South Australia and Australia do extremely well on the international scale, and not just thinking about the suburbs at which we're based in. So thank you very much. It's been great having you here. Not that we're shutting it down just yet, because there's lots of Q&A about to happen. Just more questions for you. But thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you for spending the time with us, and also just sharing your journey as well. There's lots we have to learn. Thank you. We'll do another clap before I introduce the... As part of today, one of the other things that we have the great advantage of, as I mentioned, is we have Andrew here, but we also have the Fix team as well. And I should just clarify, I say Fixie. Dis, sorry, apologies. Dis team too, who are overseeing and putting into play the Fix strategy. I've done a lot of talking today. It's Friday afternoon. I'm getting a bit mixed around a bit. But Alice, I'm just going to start setting up some chairs here, and I'm going to introduce the panel because this is a great opportunity for you as our entrepreneurial community here in this region of the state, particularly in the south of Adelaide, plus also there are a number of people online as well. And a number of you have submitted questions before today as well. I'm going to... for our panel, I don't know which place I'm going to stand in. I think I'm going to stand over here. I'd like to take this opportunity to start to welcome a panel. We do have our State Chief Entrepreneur Andrew Nunn is going to make his way back up here. I'd also like you to welcome Judy Halliday, who is the Chief Entrepreneur Operating Officer for DIS in overseeing the Fix strategy, but particularly for the Department of Innovation and Skills. We have Ben Sammy, who is the Manager of Innovation Policy and Strategy. We're going to invite Ben up as well. We have Mark Ledson, who is Business Development Manager for DIS. Beck Bates, who's Director of Creative Industries. Paxton Cook, Program Manager. Jane Liu, Project Officer. And Karen Marsh. Where's Karen? There's Karen, Manager of Creative Economy. Please come and join us. We have one more chair coming. Excellent. It's quite the crowd, and it's not every day you get the whole team in a room ready to ask questions. So please start to think about what questions you might want to ask, because this is an amazing panel of people who are here and leading the state's vision when it comes to innovation and skills and how we do that as a startup and entrepreneurial community. Now, we did have a range of questions to start with. Where's that microphone? Other microphone gone? I've just knocked the plastic plant over. Oh, Ange, okay. Sorry. I'll pass this microphone on to the panel. I'm actually going to start off with a question that was raised before today. Actually, before I do that, what if we actually just welcome the panel? Thank you. And Paxton, this question's going to go to you first, Okay, so I do have a list here, and we'll go from ones that have been submitted before, we'll go to the room, we'll go back and forth. We've had somebody ask, and I'm not sure if they're here today or if they're online, but they've asked, they want to know how they can ask for help about export regulations and support. I'm going to pass that over to you.
Nice simple one to start off with, Mary. Thank you for that. No, it's a good question. So obviously as a state we export significantly, and so from a support perspective, I think there's probably a couple of things. Obviously our colleagues at Trade Investment have a significant a number of programs and support packages around helping you access those capabilities around the export of goods and services. Probably the two programs, if I was to drill down into something specific, is around the Export Development Market Grant, which is run by the Austrade, which is a federal government program. It's really about supporting and providing funding around setting up export channels and distribution channels overseas. And our colleagues at Trade Investment have a couple of programs which are super important, and their website is very easy to use. I flicked onto it earlier this week, so I would encourage the questionnaire to have a quick look at that and navigate through that.
Fantastic, thank you, Paxton. I do have another list of questions, so we're going to, like I said, I'm going to go between the list I have pre-submitted and those in the room. Do people have questions in the room that they would like to ask as well? This is a time to put your hand up to give me a bit of an idea. In fact, Andrew, why don't we go up the back for a question first, and then we'll come back. So have a bit of a think about what questions you might like to ask. If you could introduce yourself, would be great.
Yeah, g'day, Dave Gurner from Wine Australia. Really pleased to hear you talk about the word agtech or the industry, Andrew, because that's what we're all about at the moment. So really keen to connect with you at some point and see what your vision might be for that. But my question for you and probably the broader team is, what's your thoughts on how to grow, or the blend of growing entrepreneurship in our state as opposed to importing it? You know, creating an environment and an ecosystem that you can then make attractive to the world and have South Australia, Adelaide, as a landing pad rather than sort of trying to grow those skill sets internally. You know, do you have a sort of a feel for that?
From my perspective, is that working? Yeah. From my perspective, it's not an either or. I think it's a both. I think we need to import some skills, and I think we should try. Again, I have this utopian view that we shouldn't try and compete a huge amount with our states. You know, I often say that there's only 25 million people that talk about South Australia or Victoria or New South Wales. Everyone else outside the other 7 billion talk about Australia. And I just think if we do a lot less of that and a lot more of that, we'd be so much better. So to your point, then if we put our hand up for being really good at these things, then people should come to us from either interstate or around the world. They should come to us because we've put ourselves up as saying we are the best at this. We're going to commit to it. We're going to really try. And so I think once you bring those skills in, you can also help. It's not at the exclusion of what we've got here. And I think we've got to be really careful of that, bringing overseas things out there. We've got, you know, fledgling markets just starting up, just skills and entrepreneurs starting up. To drop in a big behemoth and then say, yeah, we'll just soak up all that is probably not what we want. So what we want, and this is why we've got to work with the Department of Trade and Investment to sort of go, well, you know, we want to support the growth here. So it's about importing some, it's growing, but it's not just getting taken and consumed by a massive beast. So it's a bit, you know, I'm interested to what the rest of the group think, but my view is very much it's a bit of everything. But ultimately, I look at what the end is, we need to end up with a sustainable ecosystem of entrepreneurship in the areas we live and in the things we choose to do.
Great, thank you, Andrew. And would anyone else want to add to that any further? Thanks, Judy.
Thanks, Dave. That's a great question. First, just saying, I feel like we're, you know, the suspects lined up in some kind of a, those criminals, they did it. It's the stools, I'm pretty sure. They give you that impression. But I think, and I think as Andrew mentioned, we need to be conscious of providing both sorts of things. There is a really large group of, you know, young people who aren't particularly connected one way or another, don't see a path to jobs and a future for them here in the state or in the country, how can we best mobilise that resource? Because often, particularly at the moment where we seem to have quite a bit of effervescence, if you like, around the entrepreneurship and startup space, quite a few of our startups are hiring. In the Startup Hub at Lot 14, I think there are currently around about 25 jobs available for people. So we want to make sure that we find pathways to those jobs for people who are here and who are looking for career paths. We think differently about those career paths. Education in and of itself, post-secondary school education is in the middle of a shake-up, not just because of COVID, but because of the need for much more agile and rapid, upskilling of people in shorter job-based learning environments. So it's turned into a pretty complex and difficult environment. But it's really important that we do build a foundation for future success, not just this year and next year, but for the next 10 and 15 years, I think. And it's exactly that combination of who we have here and who we bring here because they want to come here, because we want South Australia to be a magnet for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship and for businesses that want to scale and grow.
Fantastic. Thank you both for your insights on that. And I'm sure there'll be more opportunity for discussion when we head upstairs as well. I know there'll be some targeted, some people making some beelines for some questions. Ben, I'm going to ask you the next question, if I may. Someone has asked, is Fix going to launch any new programs to invest in startups? And how can we put Adelaide in the global startup map, on the global startup map?
All right, thanks, Verity. I'll tackle the first one, the easier one first. I guess we're always looking at how best we can support the startup ecosystem, and if it involves developing new programs, we'll look to do that. So I guess the Research Commercialisation and Startup Fund that we have is open all the time. So that's our sort of key program for investing seed capital into high growth, promising businesses. And the Fix strategy kind of articulates the actions that we're going to progressively carry out over the next 4 years, basically. So, and over time we've rolled out supporting programs that complement the RCSF fund. So, for example, the government's maintaining the South Australian Venture Capital Fund for those startups that are progressing beyond that seed stage and looking to scale. We've also launched the Activate Angels program around the middle of last year. That's to, I guess, raise awareness and improve the skills around angel investing. So we're partnered with Innovation Bay, which is a national organisation, and Southern Angels is a South Australian-based organisation. So they're doing good work to raise awareness about what is it like to be an angel investor? How do you scan and identify good deals? So yeah, I guess in answer to that first part of the question is, we're not looking to create programs for the sake of creating programs, and as much as we can, we're not trying to sort of add more almost noise or fragment the ecosystem. Where we can work with partners as much as we can, we look to do that. So, for example, working with Business SA with the South Australian Young Entrepreneurship Scheme. If you want to know about that, talk to Jenny and Jade up the back there. And there's lots of good programs already in the ecosystem. You've got Jeff there with the Industry Leaders Fund. That plays an important role in, particularly in nurturing established companies and founders of those companies to grow and to get more professional development. And you've got Wendy's program there, like Switch, Start, Scale. That's playing an important role for a lot of those very early stage companies and people with ideas. So yeah, I think there will be more programs, but we're not creating them for the sake of it. The second part of the question is...
The second part is, how can we put Adelaide on the global startup map?
That's like the $1 trillion question for Andrew, I think.
Andrew has the answer?
I don't mind. I think our aim should be to put Australia on the global startup map. And you can look at all the data and see that regions that create lots of unicorn businesses are seen as a hotspot, right? So you look at Israel or Singapore and Finland, all these other places. But I don't think we should sort of aim to be like the next Silicon Valley, because we're going to have our own brand of startup ecosystem here. That's my belief anyway, but Andrew might think differently.
I mean, I think in my mind, I got the feeling here, it's confidence. You make it because people want to come here. You know, and I walk around here, there's a confidence here. You know, Philip's got a confidence about him, what he's doing, you know, he owns it. And that's what we need to do, because that's infectious and people come because of that. You know, you come because people believe in that you are the best place, because you put your hand up and then you back it. And I think that's what we need to do. And I agree, I think we should look, I know I'm South Australian entrepreneur, but I do look more to an Australian national, not that I want a promotion, but I look at that, it is really a national goal here. We need to attract the very best people in the world to come here and do some amazing things. And the work done here gives me a feeling for this is a microcosm of what that could look like.
Fantastic, thank you both. I'm going to come to the room. I know I have an online question, I think a couple as well, which I'll come to in a moment. Another question from within the room? Okay, we're going to come right down the front. I'm going to get Ange, I did say to Ange, I'm going to get her to cover as much part of the room as possible at high speeds. So just down the front row. And I'm going to send you right up the back. No, I'm not going to just yet.
Hi there, I'm Helen Ludis from International Education from the Department for Trade and Investment. So lovely to meet you somewhat on the panel there, and a great panel. So I guess my question's more about the focus that we have in international education internationally. So very much trade and investment, and looking at the investment opportunities for VC funding as well. And if we thought about any avenues, any focus in due course, of how we can be increasing a bit more of our attraction of international VC funding into South Australia, I guess, to attract the global talents, build our credibility, you know, all those types of things. So, and in addition, just what you've been mentioning about using South Australia collectively and working on our strengths, and that's an area that we're also quite aligned in. I think we've got similar views in that, in trade and investment, particularly for international ed, is how do we bring all of our universities together to represent South Australia collectively and really package it up and give a really attractive package to overseas universities as a bigger piece, in a sense, and focus on our strengths. We are quite aligned like that, which is a good thing to hear. But we're also looking ahead, and how can we be attracting more of that VC funding and working with DIS in that space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, attracting VC funding is an issue. We need to think about how we do that better. I think it's a bit, again, goes back to confidence though. You know, people come because they hear about us, they see it, they hear what we're doing, and they come. And VCs are a little bit like lemmings. You know, one comes, a whole heap of them come, and then they all sort of sit on the edge, and one jumps and a lot more of them jump. So I think the issue is there are people around. So I think we need to understand that we have some VC capacity here. There are people looking here. I think we need to try and focus that quicker. We need to probably get some more runs on the board for that. We need to make it easier for VCs to come and play. So there's a whole range of things. I think VCs generally worry about the volume of deal flow happening here. So, you know, I don't want to come here for one or two things. I want to come here for 20. So, and which is great, because we wanted to come here for 22. So the aim is to try and start by building the entire ecosystem by getting more people in. Ecosystem, that word. But it's about getting more people in, starting up, getting some support enough. The VCs say, great idea, I can come here and I can invest in 10 things, I can keep my eye on them because I want to stay here. It's all about scale. I mean, I think we've got some great ideas, and we're great in SA at getting to sort of 5 to 20 people in a company. It's the scale from 20 to 200 and 200 to 2,000 that we need to get better at. Part of that's confidence, part of it's money. You'll have a view.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely right. That's spot on. I have personal experience with overseas VCs and VC funds, and getting that money into Australia is not easy, and getting it from the East Coast into Adelaide is also not easy. But fundamentally, they're going to come if they think there's a deal to be done. And so we need more investable companies here. We need to build those businesses, as Andrew said, that are capable of scaling to 200. Because those are the sorts of businesses that VCs want to invest in, because they'll get their return on investment on that. So it's really about, the reality for us is that we need to build our system here so that there are investable assets. And if you look back 5 years ago, there were maybe 1 or 2 investable assets, and now there may be 20 or 30 investable assets. So we're on a pathway to doing that. And actually, if you look around South Australia now, there are quite a few businesses that do have overseas and East Coast investors invested in them. So that's a good thing, because they'll have to come here for board meetings and various other things, and while they're here for a board meeting, they'll want to have a look at 10 other companies. So it's really about building that momentum. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, and it's not something that can be easily fixed by a single action. It's a lot of actions that require continuous effort in order to get conversion, I think, and to get VC funds to come here. Ultimately, what we want them to do is to be based here. That would be, that would be fabulous.
Plus, South Australia is literally the greatest place on earth to do anything. So once you're here, why would you go anywhere else? So,
well, we don't want everybody here.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's true.
That's quite a nice segue into a question that has come online, because I'm going to bring it from that bigger vision to a little bit more specific, and then I'm going to bring it back out again. We've had a question online that has asked, how do I get the support to progress an idea? And I know there's a variety of ways that can happen at a state level. But importantly, they've also asked, well, how do I get the support to build the team? So, we're talking that big vision, and then we're talking about companies that are going to grow, but the support to actually build that team as well when someone is on that they want to scale up. Can I propose that to the panel on what there might be? I mean, I can answer it from a university perspective, but I won't do that.
I'll have a first crack at that and then pass on to others in the team, I think. There is no simple answer. There are many opportunities within our environment here in South Australia for you to find support to grow your team. The question really is, what type of team are you trying to grow? Where are you going? What's your vision for your business? And then, the universities have opportunities for you to work with them to get the research done, or to test or prototype, or to come and learn about building a business. And there are other supports available through all number of different things. Business SA runs a number of different programs that support entrepreneurs to build their teams, as does DIS through a whole bunch of programs that are run through the Office of the Chief Entrepreneur. So it's not a simple, straightforward answer. It requires businesses, individuals to think about where are you going? What's your line of sight to success? What do you need to be successful? And then you've got to get out there and burn up the shoe leather talking to people to find the right parts of that system to work for you most efficiently to get to that success point. Anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll just add that I think, there's no simple answer there. I think when you're starting off as single or dual founder, you have very specific skill sets, and maybe they're very technical in nature, and then as you grow, you need someone to come in to help with the commercial side of things. Or it might be the other way around. And so you really need to understand, I guess, the trajectory of your business and where you want to go, and then trying to fill in those gaps. And as your turnover increases from 100,000 to 1 million and then 5 million, the challenge is still there, and you need to surround yourself with relevant people, because no one person or even 2 people can really have all the impact and all the elements that's required to run a successful business. And you see that even with a massive multinational. I mean, that's why they have boards and those sorts of things. And so I think the really critical thing is being, as G's mentioned, is really getting out there and just understanding, well, what are the gaps I need to fill, and then trying to find the right people to fill it. And then also, the other part of it is around the personalities as well. You've got to get along with these people because you've got to work with them as well. So I think there's a myriad of different things, and so there's no one size fits all. It's just a bit of trial and error, I suppose, or using a bit of thinking there.
Can I say that I think the 55,000 kids or young adults between 17 and 24 that don't have connection to work or education, are a fantastic source that we need to be tapping. We need to find a way to get them engaged and get them involved in jobs, and they're part of that workforce that you need. You know, they're just not there yet, but they need to be there, and they need people to support them to get there.
And I'll just add, purely because I'm coming from a university perspective as well, that all the universities in this state, and I imagine all universities around Australia, are really happy to work with any organisation to work out how we can help pipeline staff for you. There are internship programs, there's work experience programs that universities support to enable that to happen. Purely from a Flinders perspective, we work with small, medium and large organisations and councils and government, particularly a couple of examples with councils and small business, where we've actually designed programs to upskill students in readiness for those organisations. We train with them, we help the recruitment process so it's not leaving people out by their own, thinking, I haven't had an experience doing this, how do I do that? We have teams that can do that, and generally it's free of charge. So we want to see new generations of staff coming through. We're here to support anyone who'd like to talk to us, and if we can't help, we can help find somebody for you as well. And so just contact NewVenture Institute, we'll put you in contact with the right people. I'm going to come back out now. We've gone a bit sort of smaller scale for growth. We're going to come a bit bigger vision. I'm going to pass this on to you, Judy, please. I will come to the rest of the panel because the other panel's like, well, we're on the spotlight of, you know, the usual suspects, but if we don't say anything, then...
Well, apparently I did it, so...
Okay. So Judy, this is a question that came from a pre-submitted question. Then I'm going to ask the room again if anyone else has a question. What are the priority areas you are looking to progress to keep entrepreneurs supported in South Australia? So new technology, new business registrations, providing services, goods, etc. Just, yeah, what are the priority areas to look to progress for the state?
So I think probably everyone's pretty well aware that the government's got a stated intention for growth and has identified 9 sectors for growth, what are called the growth sectors. And Andrew spoke a little bit about where our priority interests are. We should work to our strengths. We should do what we're good at. And so all of the things that we've talked about before in terms of, you know, businesses that are growing up and trying to scale in areas like space, defence, security, cybersecurity, creative industries, health, medical, those sorts of things are of interest to us. So our job and our intent is to provide support, foundation, framework conditions that will allow businesses to thrive. You know, fundamentally, we're really interested in those sorts of businesses that have the potential to grow up to be larger businesses that have goods and services that can address problems that are global, not just local. We want to see more economic complexity, which is a fancy economist's word for saying different types of businesses, really. We're a state and we're a nation. Australia is a nation of small businesses. In South Australia, probably 90% of businesses are less than 5 people. Probably about 95% of businesses are less than 5 people. And then the big businesses we have are the big multinational businesses, the BHPs, you know, the big businesses that are here now to build in the defence contracts and things. We really need more of those businesses that are a couple hundred people to a couple of thousand people that grow up here and do all the sorts of things that we've been talking about. So there's not really a specific answer. We do really like businesses. So if you're a business out there that's got some really great protectable intellectual property, an absolute niche in the market where you have a sustainable competitive advantage and you're going to be able to build new products and services that are going to scale really quickly into businesses that have a global reach, then that's absolutely something we're very interested in. But there are lots of other businesses here that will grow and scale and become very important parts of supply chains and those sorts of things. So we're keen on the idea of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial thinking because it's about people who are prepared to take that extra step, go that extra mile, have a go, start washing houses when they're very young, that sort of thing. You know, you've really got to take a little bit of a risk and a calculated risk probably. So I think those are the sorts of businesses that we're interested in, individuals we're interested in, because the other thing I think we've got to try and be mindful of is that the entrepreneur as a hero, single thing going out there and doing, you know, I'm the business, I'm everything, is a bit of a myth. Successful businesses and successful entrepreneurship is all about a team sport. As Paxton said before, you need to be surrounding yourself with people who are really good at lots of different things, and you can't, as an individual, be good at everything. So it's really about building really good teams going forward too.
Great, thanks, Judy. There's one question that's at the back. As I said, I'm going to get Ange to go to the back of the room again. Was it, yes, Val, just over here? Then I'm going to come back to the one online. Then I'll come to you, Philippe, and that's probably going to be our last question because I know it's Friday afternoon and there is networking drinks upstairs, which I imagine people are ready. Suddenly just people, and I've got a creative question, which is I really want to pose to the panel as well.
Hi,
Okay.
and Judy, panel, and thanks for coming. There is one quick question. In South Australia, there are a lot of startups comes here, but they both go back to their home country and develop their business in terms of the manufacturing. So what we see here for the startup ecosystem, they can develop something innovative product, but they're not able to stay back here for the manufacturing. So how the state government can support us in this, in terms of the manufacturing?
Okay, we're going to pass that one over to Mark.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a hard one, right? So if you're talking about government support, government's going to support an entrepreneur or a startup or an early stage business for one reason, that's going to pay back to the taxpayer's investment. So somehow that investment into that company, that early stage company, is at some point going to, maybe not straight away, but at some point, bring a return to society, a return to the economy. And so you've got to be able to show that. And that doesn't have to mean that 100% of, and in grant language it's called benefits to the state. So it doesn't mean that your project has to have, I know we've had this discussion, but 100% of the benefits to the state. But there's got to be considerable or proportional benefits to South Australia for the South Australian taxpayer to invest, like any investor, to get a reasonable return on their investment, considering the risk and everything else that's involved. So what I'd say to you, if there's manufacturing likely to be done overseas and more with, you know, low-cost manufacturing regions offshore, that's a reality for Australian manufacturing. If that is the case, well, it might be that some of your components have to be made overseas, but maybe not all of them. And it's about what else is happening here in terms of your capability development, your R&D activity, maybe you're assembling here. There's a whole lot of things that are part of a business other than just even a manufacturing business, other than just the manufacturing. So what we're interested in is what can happen here, and is that significant? Obviously, the more the better. In terms of manufacturing, obviously, manufacturing can be really viable in Australia, but we're a high-cost, region or location, particularly for manufacturing. And so, but so are places like Switzerland and Germany that have thriving manufacturing sectors. So there's no reason we can't do it here. We've got the challenge of distance, but there's plenty of very successful manufacturing companies in South Australia and Australia that prove that it can be done here. It tends to need to be highly differentiated, perhaps high margin, low volume, or even better, high margin, high volume products rather than your competing on cost. So finding competitive advantages and value propositions that aren't about cost but about other things, that's where our manufacturing businesses need to be sitting in. And I would suggest maybe most of our startups need to be thinking that way.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else that would like to add to that any further? The great thing is the team is sticking around for more questions upstairs as well. I'm just aware of time, so I'm going to ask one more question that has been submitted earlier. So, Philippe, I'm sorry that I'm going to invite you when we go upstairs to ask the team that question, because I really want to ask a creatives question, because it's an area that I know we have some great representation here on the panel. It's also an area of distinct interest for NVI as well. So I have the power to ask the creative question. So we have a question that said, what incentive or support is available to encourage social enterprise? And similar question, the same thing with creative enterprises.
So I can answer the creative probably more confidently than the social one, so I'll tackle that one. So first thing I'll say is that creative industries being recognised as a part of growth state, as a sector for growth, instantly is this government's way of changing a mindset. So people would study a creative practice, using the word practice, and come out a lot of the time, not always obviously, there are lots of creative entrepreneurs forever. I'm not saying that's never been there, but many creatives that have been developing a creative practice would come out of education or their own, other training, and sort of be guided for government support through an arts portfolio, which has always been quite a let's fund your arts practice mentality. And while that's fantastic, it builds the culture of the state, and I was a part of that team for many years and loved it very much. This is a change in mindset. It's about, and the fixed strategy and having creative industries embedded within the innovation portfolio of the department is about creative practitioners becoming, recognising themselves as creative enterprise. So the first thing I'd say is that. But on the point of what incentives are around to support creative enterprise, obviously everything that's a part of the fixed strategy and the Office of the Chief Entrepreneur and the small business is available to all creative enterprise for their own business development. In addition to that, though, we have some nuanced creative industries investment. Creative industries is really broad. There's 10 really very, very different and completely separate and unrelated business sectors within creative industries. So it's quite complex, and there's not a one-size-fits-all quite often. So there are some government-directed investment. A broad sweeping one is that we run a precinct to support creative enterprise called the St Paul's Creative Centre, and that's in the city, corner of Pulteney Street and Flinders Street. We have obviously affordable space for hot desking and members, as well as businesses that want to base there and grow and scale. We have networking sessions and encourage networking across those different creative industries. We also have digital and visual students in there from one of our big companies, actually the largest employers in creative industries in the state, do some training in there. So we have students coming through. I think we have actually some Flinders students that come in and base themselves there as well. So St Paul's is a great space for that cross-pollination and networking. A part of developing the creative industries strategy, which Karen was leading for our department, was the feedback was that across creative industries there's not a lot of opportunity, or there's not a creative industries association to build the networking. And networking is about building the networks that builds the teams, that helps your business scale. So we see as part of our role is facilitating those networking and those opportunities to bring people together. And so we are delivering a whole program of that across the year. There's lots I could say, and I'm conscious of time, but we have incentives through investment into the screen industry, which includes the games sector, the music industry. There's the Jam Factory here. That's an internationally renowned finishing school, if you like, with studios in itself that's about helping those creative enterprise, build and scale out of that as a base. We also then support organisations and industry associations that deliver all sorts of enterprise growth support, and in the past we would have said, artist development support, but it's changing that language, it's changing the mindset. And so there's everything from the Helpman Academy through to then specific industry-led associations for music and craft and everything through to literature. So there's quite a really broad and deep array of support across many government departments as well. Obviously Arts South Australia still exists. The Department of Education also now has creativity within its portfolio, specifically focusing on youth obviously. So I could talk for a long time about it, so it's probably best that I stop. And Karen was going to add something.
I was just going to say, if you want to hear more about all this and about the support we have for the creative industries, you are welcome to come along to our creative industries networking sessions. They're held at St Paul's Creative Centre. We're also happy to give you a tour of St Paul's, which is a fantastic precinct for the creative industries. But they're held once a month, and basically each session focuses on a theme that came out of the consultation that we did with industry to develop the growth state creative industry strategy. And the next one is sometime in April, but you can check out the St Paul's Facebook page for more information. But we'd love to have you there. Thanks.
Can I just say, in relation to social entrepreneurs and impact entrepreneurs, is a term we like to use, is we have some at Lot 14. I said in the advertiser about 6 weeks ago that it's going to be a focus of what we do. I think it's really important as part of getting a balanced ecosystem that we have at Lot 14 is to be a broader church for who we bring in, and I believe that. I think it's fundamental to. I think it makes everything we do better. You know, the term social often is associated with the fact that it doesn't make a profit, which is not the case at all. And in fact, a lot of these things are very profitable. They just reinvest the profits back. So we think they fit beautifully within the remit of what we do. As part of the Entrepreneur Advisory Board, we'll be looking at ways to make it easier for social entrepreneurs to get involved and to have a spot and a place at Lot 14 and to I was going to say, involve themselves in everything that's happening in Lot 14, and that they get the advantage of it like everybody else. You know, the colliding of ideas, and we just end up with a much better outcome. If you can get social entrepreneurs and impact entrepreneurs to intercept more social problems and redirect those and save money that way, well, fantastic. And so we need to support it. So.
And I'll just add a bit to that as well. I absolutely think that that's a very key part of what we're trying to do, because I think particularly for government, and Mark touched on this, what we're looking for is value for the community more broadly, where we can apply a lens like a VC to some things where we want to have hard economic returns, but we are very privileged in that we can look at value from a different perspective, and we can ask ourselves about the value that an enterprise brings to the community and the value that an enterprise brings around sustainable development goals, the environment, and those sorts of things. And there's a whole bunch of entrepreneurs doing really amazing things in those spaces. So we need to get better at working with those entrepreneurs, no doubt. And I just say to Beck, very exciting, when we were down at Line 0 not moments ago, we saw the people in developing new technology and things around human factors and how to use technology and building those new submarines and ships have borrowed some stuff from the creative industries. You know, those funny little bobbles that you tie and everything that they use in filming and for AR and VR? It's all there now. So I guess the point is that we're used to thinking in silos and in, you know, disciplines and those sorts of things. The reality is that pretty much everything can be used somewhere else in many different ways, and that's what's really exciting. It's that collision on the edges of the disciplines where you get the really most interesting outcomes. And at the end of the day, anything that's out there has to be done and involve people, so the human factors are really important.
And that's what South Australians do that.
Yes.
I think that is a perfect spot to finish, because it actually finishes on the fact that we do that well, and we can continue to do it even better for the mix of people in the room here, for those online, for those sitting here at the front and under the spotlight. Thank you so much. It actually shows us how we can actually work as a state, but more importantly, keeps our vision and our blinkers broader about how we can do this as a country as well and be on the international stage. Please join me in thanking the panel. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. Now, importantly, we are doing drinks and catering some upstairs as well. What I would ask is these guys are sticking around and are very happy for more questions, just so they actually get to go upstairs. I'm going to let them go ahead so that they can actually take the time going up. But it's not locking you here in the room. I just ask you to, if you're going to have a chat on the way up, please walk and talk as the team head upstairs. It's on level 2 in this building. Please join us. It's fantastic for those people who are here on site. For those online, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to have you here. I know I didn't get to all the questions, but please join us upstairs. And thank you very much for joining us today.